It was an eventful day Thursday for Wasden. We can only assume he's having coffee with Governor Kempthorne today. But before he has that coffee, we wanted to take a closer look at this nuclear issue.
Neither one of us have any intention of letting this decision by two of the elected officials of the state of Idaho come to pass.
Former governors Phil Batt and Cecil Andrus are mad.
You know, it was the most important part of my administration for at least half my term, so.
That's Phil's legacy. And now this group, for their legacy, want to destroy his. It just doesn't make any sense, but
I don't think it's at all necessary.
The anger stems from a letter Governor Otter and Attorney General Lawrence Wasden sent to the Department of Energy Secretary earlier this month. It says the state of Idaho is willing to allow 2 shipments of commercial spent nuclear fuel to be delivered to the Idaho National Laboratory for testing purposes.
today the current governor and the Attorney General have given permission to the federal government to bring in shipment of 50 spent nuclear fuel rods. Each one of those weighs roughly 1,500 pounds.
That size is in dispute, and we'll get to that in a moment. Governor Batt says he understands why the state is willing to grant a one-time waiver, but he's fearful of the potential long-term consequences.
And I'm in sympathy with them on the need to keep generating jobs. I just don't think that that's a way to do it, to say we're going to take more waste, because Yucca Mountain has been closed down by the president and other people, and there's no permanent depository anywhere. And once we get it, it's here. And by golly, I think that they will try to bring more and more, make us more of a depository if we show that we'll take some.
Yucca Mountain in Nevada was supposed to be the national nuclear waste storage site. But in 2009, the plan was scrapped, and today there's valid concerns about the future of nuclear waste storage.
We cannot, in the state of Idaho, afford to make that gamble. And the only way you're going to stop them is for the people to rise up and say no.
Governor Andrus claims the shipments of 50 spent fuel rods could weigh up to 37.5 tons. But Governor Otter says there's some confusion over the size and scale of the 2 shipments in question.
And so the shipment that they're talking about would be about 58 kilos of commercial fuel. Now, it also allows them to keep a portion of those fuel rods in the state for a research and reference library later on. That was agreed to 3 years ago in a memorandum of understanding.
That small amount of commercial fuel, banned under the 1995 settlement agreement, is possible due to a small exception on page 11 of the agreement that gives the state sole discretion to waive terms and conditions. Governor Otter says this whole issue is likely a case of miscommunication. He thought the 2 former governors were aware of the shipments and dismisses the idea that the deal was conducted in secret.
Well, if the reason that they're frustrated and the reason that they're mad is because they weren't included, I understand that. And so that shouldn't be frustrating. That should be embarrassing to me. And it is, because I thought we had followed through and made sure that they both had a copy of the letter that we were going to send to the Department of Energy.
Plus, Otter touts the benefits of the waiver. Conditions of the shipments require the DOE to return to compliance with Batt's settlement agreement. Plus, it infuses the lab with millions for research.
You know, it could be upwards of $20 million a year for the next 5 years for the lab.
And due to the small size of the shipments, 58 kilos is less than 130 pounds, and the fact that the lab has developed expertise in the nuclear field, Otter feels the risk is minimal.
I don't want to get into a fight with Governor Batt and Governor Andrus through the news media. I would rather get my phone call and see if we can sit down and look each other in eye to eye and discuss this out. Whether they agree or not, I still owe them that.
Both Governors Andrus and Batt say the reason they are speaking out publicly on this issue is to let us know what our elected officials are up to, and said they're concerned one exception to the rules could lead to more down the road.
Governor Otter, on the other hand, points out that the 2 shipments of spent fuel are based on a conditional waiver, meaning the federal government has to have a plan to resolve non-compliance issues at the INL.
One of which is to continue shipments of transuranic waste to the waste isolation pilot plant in New Mexico. That plant hasn't been accepting shipments since last year due to a handful of safety violations, meaning waste that should have left Idaho is still here.